thought-provoking podcast that sheds light on the challenges faced by young people living in urban areas. We highlight the resilience and creativity of young leaders who are finding innovative ways to overcome the challenges our young people are facing, inspiring listeners to take action to support them. This is A Different Cloth.
What's going on? We are back, A Different Cloth podcast.
Yep.
I'm excited to be back. I'm excited to jump into this conversation.
Yeah, bro.
But first off, I know a lot has happened in the past couple of weeks. We took a field trip. We've been hanging out. You know what I mean? I just want to check in. Where are you? How you doing?
Yeah.
How's life?
Man, I'm feeling great. That field trip was it was a strong field trip. It was one of those ones that it's hard to come back and be the same.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm on that kick right now. And so, I mean, there's good and bad to that, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, the good part is I feel like I'm becoming a different person, kind of showing up the way that I'm supposed to show up. And that's exciting. Also, the downfall of that is that has implications for everybody around me, and not everybody is ready for that. And so that part is like,
Yeah.
what do you do with that? So, but I feel good.
That's good. I feel like for me, the trip was, it was like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. I feel fresh. I feel like it's just easier. I feel more focused. I feel more, and honestly, it's allowing me to forgive daily. And I know we'll get into what that looks like. But I definitely want to have a conversation around seasons.
Yeah. Hey, real quick. When you went in, describe what that weight was prior to, and then what's the difference now? Why do you feel lighter now?
Yeah, that's big to unpack. All right, so when I went in, I think I went in for a different motive, you would say. I think I went in with the perspective of like, man, what can I take to instill in my kids, both of my kids. But at the end of it all, I realized the best way to instill anything in them is for me not to give up, and for me to push forward, and for me to reach that new ceiling, past that ceiling, wherever I feel like I hit, you know what I mean? So
you just becoming a higher version of yourself for your kids' sake, right?
Yeah.
Because then you're going to model it more than you'll tell them to, like, keep going.
Yeah. Especially, I feel like even in that, it's so interesting, right? Because the trip being a part of, like, this new season I'm in, right? With this new mindset, or, like, even just the move itself from New York to California, like, understanding, like, I have to break old habits. I have to break old patterns. Like, where I feel like where God is taking me, like, I needed to rid of a lot of things that was kind of keeping me from, whether that be people, whether that be my personal habits, whether it be my thoughts. I had to, like, rid of it all.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Pause right there. Raise your hand if you have to break old habits still. Like,
1, 2,
you know what I'm
3,
saying?
4.
Like, I resonate deeply with that, right? I think anytime you're talking about something new, there has to be a divorce of the old, right?
Yeah.
And that's really difficult. And I think I can make a valid argument that the main thing that keeps us from new is not that we don't like change or we're not open to something new. It's that we don't have you hate when I say stuff like this, but, like, the courage or the guts to divorce the old, right? Because it takes that. It takes a real,
it does.
Some gusto, you got to be like, So anyways.
Yeah, I think for me, it's twofold, right? It's the understanding what needs to be, like, released, what needs to be kind of, like, X'd out of your life, right? What do you need to kind of get rid of? But then also, once you finally do that, you realize, like, you're almost like this infant again. You're like this baby again, learning to crawl, learning to walk, learning to do all these new things, because you've lived this way so much that when you're encountering something new, like, sometimes you don't know how to process, or you don't know how to, like, dive deep in because you want to you want to get familiar with it first. You know what I mean? Like when you're doing the double dutch, you gotta size it up before you jump in, kind of stuff.
Oh, that's real.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. Like, there's a level that I feel now of like exposed or like fragile almost, right? In the sense of not that I'm soft or anything like that, but I just feel really like this is new.
Yeah.
And you got to be careful, right?
Yeah.
Like, and partially because I don't want to revert back to like the old ways that I was doing things or thinking. But I feel that in this new season, it's like.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting, right? Because I feel like even jumping is not a word. Don't use that word.
I thought it was New York slang.
Even jumping into a new season, it's like you have to be okay with looking completely undone. You know what I mean? Like we had a
say that again, bro. That's
you got to be able to look undone, right?
Dang.
And I'll be really like, we'll go there right now because I'm feeling it, right? We had to do some videos for our schools that they'll get to see in our success clubs and the work we do. And one of the topics I had to talk about was friends. We don't have to get into the topic now, but like I walked out of that conversation like really bothered on how I delivered that conversation because I don't like looking undone. Because I don't like looking in a way that someone would look at that and say he's not ready.
Sheesh.
You know what I mean? I don't like people looking at me, and this is me throwing in, being super vulnerable.
Yeah.
So if anybody feels this way, comment. Let's chat.
Yeah.
I need to have this conversation. But the reality is, it's like, man, you can do so much and you can provide so much. But the minute you feel undone in front of somebody, it's just this shame comes to you. You know what I mean? And that I took it and I sat with it in the back, and it took my whole day. It took my whole day. Every conversation was different. You know, people was needing help in the back, and I was like, yeah, man, I don't want to talk to nobody.
Dang.
You know what I mean? But it's just that thing of like, man, like I'm showing Troy and the Achilles. You know what I mean? Like I'm showing my little weak spot, you know, and but
I mean, there's a lot to unpack in that, right? Like that's number one, great, great, because especially in the work we do, so many students do not live a finished life. Their life is undone, right? And so when we allow ourselves to go there and feel that and be that, I do think we invite them into our world, and then they don't feel as alone because they're not getting the polished version of ourselves, right? And so I'm listening to you, and I want to clap for you, bro. Like that's like, and I know the emotional toll that takes,
emotional damage,
and because it is, there's a cost to being undone, right? And it's like your pride, even self-preservation. That like I want people to see me a certain way. All of that is out the window when you're undone. When you're like, yo, this is the raw me, and and you can't control how people receive that either, right? And that's probably the worst part, because like in your mind you're thinking like, all these people are looking at me X, Y, and Z way. In all reality, I mean, they could, but they also could not.
I'll even take it a step further, especially if you come from like a traumatic experience where people. Like, I come from New York. What you do is based off your skills. You know what I mean? What you can, realistically, what you can provide. It's the hustle of it all, right? And then when you show yourself as undone and you show yourself as the type of person, the minute what people close to you say is like, man, just when that new situation comes up, they don't even consider you because they're gonna think about you being undone, right? But the reality is, I had to literally sit. Shout out to my wife too, because
come on, shout out to. I was gonna say, I don't know we're doing that, but shout out to your wife, bro.
You know what I mean? Like, shout out to her, because I called her on the ride home and I said, man, it was awful. You know what I mean? I said it was awful, and she said, "Man, I wonder if you're thinking about it for you or for the kids. Because if it's for you, she was like, you're wildly selfish right now because you're worried about you being undone. But you know what I mean? Allowing them to see you undone is the name of the game. You know what I mean? And I said, well, you want to work at Rag? Because we can switch. You know what I mean? So
wow. I mean, I think that there's there's a theme, right, that we could take that word undone into the classroom setting and what we do with young people, and watch how our undoneness, I don't even think that's a word, but like
it's New York slang,
right? It'll activate somebody else's ability to be undone.
Yeah.
And I just think the other side of that is, bro, there's so much processing, healing, growth that happens from those moments. And I think that's, to me, I've been on this like whole growth thing of like, I'm this new person and what does it take to keep growing? It takes being really uncomfortable to grow.
Yeah.
And being undone makes you uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
So to me, and even listening to you talk about it now after the fact, because the day I could tell that you were different after that conversation, right? Like, but I'm listening to you talk about it now, and I am curious, and maybe I'll ask the question.
Sure.
What growth took place that day? As you were processing, and as you were like, what was God doing in all of that, like to grow Angel?
Yeah, I think for me, I don't know if this counts as growth. I mean, I feel like it does, because I feel like even a couple of years ago, I don't know if I would have this type of perspective or this type of conversation with either my wife or with God. But it's almost like, man, like in order to do what we do, in order to do what God has called you to do, you have to be able to give completely all of yourself. Like all of it, the good and the bad. You know what I mean? Like you can try to live as polished as you want.
Come on, bro.
But the reality is, I think people learn way more from the valley than they do the high road. You know what I mean?
Facts.
For sure. So it's like we could preach, or I can put it in on myself. I can preach this thing with these cool things and these cool words and all this other stuff. But if I don't show what it is to look undone.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Even in my scale of whatever undone is for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if I don't even show a glimpse of it, you know what I mean? Like you see all these like successful people, right? And you always wonder like, well, how did they get there? Right? And then you kind of pull, as a young person, I would kind of pull myself away from them. It's because I could never be that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I never want to be that person that someone looks at me and says, I could never be that.
Come on, bro.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah.
Bro, it's incredible. Number one, that's growth.
Yeah.
So just like that's definitely growth. Like that's definitely growth.
Yeah.
Number two, the valley thing, bro, is so real. Because you're right, bro. I think when we live this full, finished product, polished life, we become untouchable.
Yeah.
Unreachable.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, and that's why, bro. And I don't know if anybody ever hears me talk about RAG and where we're at, and literally one of my favorite things to say about where we are as an organization is that it's not sexy.
Yeah.
Right. And because on the outside, people see the social media, and maybe poor choice of words, but like, whatever. Like, but people see social media and they're like, oh my God, and y'all are killing it, and you're on the campuses. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't know the pain.
Yeah.
In the meetings and in the conversations we got to have and the challenges. And because I say that so often, not because I want to discourage people or but I want to live that undone life too. And I want to be able to be raw. Like, yes, don't get me wrong, y'all. We're making a massive impact, and I couldn't be more thankful for that. Yeah. But, like, this is not always cute.
No, it's not. I think about a construction worker, right? Construction worker, like, you could tell somebody does really good construction if you look at their hands and they have calluses. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, man, your hands are messed up. But that's almost like, hey, you do good work.
Come on, bro. I mean?
Like, you're putting a good work. And the opposite of that is if I see your hands and they're still baby soft.
Oh, you ain't doing nothing.
It's like, oh, there's no pressure.
Come on.
You know what I mean?
Pressure.
There's no challenge. Wow. There's no force. There's no work being done.
Wow. So it gives me this thought, right? Like coming from that field trip that shout out to Gap community, a coaching community that
we didn't go to Six Flags.
Led that. No, it wasn't a Six Flags trip. That led this experience called Awaken. And I literally, as I'm describing Awaken to people, I'm like, yeah, I think the word fits. Like, I felt awakened after that weekend, right?
Yeah.
And just shout out to them. But I'm thinking about growth and, you know, the pressure and the fight that comes from it, like that ultimately will lead you to grow. And I just think of how many people opt out of growth because they don't want calloused hands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I mean, bro, if I'm honest, prior to Awaken, I've opted out of a lot of growth in my own life because I shied away from a fight. And not in real life, because I'll square up with somebody, but but I shied away from, like, I knew I should have addressed that in somebody, and I didn't. I knew I should have called somebody to the carpet on what they did or didn't do. I knew I should have advocated for. I knew I should have done something differently. And in me, going back to like Erica and what she said, in me, I found a coward in me that shied away from the fight. Yeah. And because I shied away from the fight, I lost an opportunity to grow and to help somebody else grow. And even as I'm coming back, and I know, I mean, I don't mind being real, but I know even some of our staff in the beginning was like, kind of felt like, oh, he's on his high horse. So he's like, like, here he goes, right? All good. I'm not tripping, right? But in that high horse place that they thought I was in, I think the misconception is that they thought I was there for me. Yeah. And I was really there to call them to a higher level. And that's what I'm more committed to doing now than ever, which means that there are fights that have to happen. There are challenging conversations, like all of that now has to take place. And I have to address the coward in me who don't like a fight. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I want to have this conversation with you, right? Because I feel like for people who are leading teams, right? And for people who have honest conversations with their teams and actually like... I
feel like this is about to get real.
like... talking about the ceiling, right? And understanding where God is not only taking, like, putting yourself out of it, right? Where God is taking rag, right? How does it feel to carry, and maybe you're not carrying it, but I feel like I would. How does it feel to carry all this weight knowing you are responsible for pushing us into a new season, but also getting all the hits?
Whoo! What a question. Bro, it's easy. I'm so lying.
I'm like, man, you're good.
Yeah, no, bro. So I think here's the hard part, and I think this is what I don't think people really fathom, both inner office and out of office. When I am challenging inner office for the sake of growth. And one of the things I'm trying to be clear of, and I hope it's being communicated that way, is like when I'm calling somebody to grow as a team member, it's really, yes, it should benefit RAG, but it's more about your personal growth and development than it is RAG's growth and development. Because I think, and that's what I'm learning, is the more I grow and develop, the more RAG grows and develops. That same thing is true of every team member we have. If we would all take the ownership to our own growth and development, well, then the company is going to grow and develop naturally by default, right? So the hard part is that sometimes I feel like I have to pick a fight with our staff to call them to grow. And at the same time, what most of our team members don't realize is I'm not only fighting in here, I'm also fighting out there to keep things moving forward, right? So I feel like I'm getting hit from both sides. And ideally you want to be like, well, at least if nobody else understands or gets me, our team is going to get me. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. And so it feels like in here I can have to be the bad guy sometimes, or I'm like, oh, here he goes again, or like, you know, whatever that means. But then out there, y'all, I'm like, I'm fighting to make sure we're getting paid. I'm fighting to make sure that like the lights are staying on and that like people's families are taken care of. And I don't think people see both sides of that, nor do they necessarily have to, because I signed up for that. They didn't, right? So I'm not asking them to wear my burden in that. Yeah. But I'm fighting on both sides. That's the hardest part of this. I feel like if I'm taking a blow in, I'm turning around, I'm taking a blow out. Yeah. And that sucks. That sucks. That it's like, it feels like it's hard to find a safe haven or a place that like people understand the blows you're taking,
Yeah.
both in or out, right? And so that's the hard part about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad I'm not you. No, I'm joking. I'll say this. I since being here, I've seen how much you've carried. I just want to say I appreciate you.
Bro.
Like, you don't have to. Like, I've met other people in your situation, and it's just so easy for them to treat people as numbers and like subtract and add for their personal gain. And you've never been one of those type of guys. I mean, I literally commend you for it. You know what I mean? I do want to now shift the conversation outward, though, right?
Yeah.
Now, coming from that perspective, is it possible to have people who serve under you, if it's like a youth pastor or someone who's running an org, do I have to, if I'm serving under you, do I have to be completely sold on the vision in order to get what you need done?
Ooh, great question. I want to give you an honest answer.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. And also, do you want, should we, if I'm trying to run RAG, do I want people to come around me who get the vision and who want to push this vision forward? Like, you know?
Yeah. So I mean, so obviously the easy answer is yeah, of course. Of course you want people that are sold out to the vision. But let me tell you why that's so important, right? It's very important. And I think this is what people have to realize, that the more you're bought into a person and not the vision, the more the person's going to disappoint, piss you off, frustrate you. And the moment that happens, I can back out of the vision because I was really bought into the person and not the vision. So you need people who are vision focused, because my commitment to a vision can keep me longer than the frustration I have with the people within the vision. Yeah. And I think even going back to that awakening training, I don't know if you remember, but the first thing they asked us to do was say, what's your vision for this weekend?
Yeah.
And every time there was friction, every time there was a challenge, every time people was like, man, I'm ready to quit, they reminded you of your vision.
Yeah.
Because vision will keep you in the game when everything about life is telling you to opt out, right? You're like, I'm done. Like, I can't do this no more. And so, I mean, even recently, having to process with a team member what their vision is for their life, knowing that it is not RAG.
Yeah.
Right. And allowing them to see beyond that, even at the cost or the risk of loyalty, right? Because here's what happens sometimes is, if I'm loyal to the person, I'll stay in the vision longer than I should, right? Because I truthfully believe this: everybody on the RAG team may not be here forever, right? Yeah. And if you're loyal to the vision, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be a part of Rescue a Generation forever.
That's good.
It just means I'm going to be here for the season I'm here. I'm going to be all in because I'm loyal to the vision.
Yeah.
And then when my season is out, I'm still loyal to the vision.
Yeah.
I still rock with you. There's no hard feelings, but it's a lot easier for me to transition out, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the kind of thing I'm processing. But yeah, you need people that are bought into not just the people or the personalities or we got a dope squad here. Like, it's funny. I'm gonna throw you out there a little bit, but I know one of the things that was very appealing to you about Rescue a Generation, beyond the work we do, because I know you love the work we do, was the team that we have from the very beginning, right? Like urban, ethnic people doing the work, right? Right?
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, I'll have it.
Okay, yeah.
I'll have that conversation.
I was like, yeah.
I'm down to have it.
Because I think that's dope, right? But if that was the only thing that kept you here, the moment you saw a flaw in urban ethnic leaders, bye. I can't do this no more, right?
Yeah.
And so thankfully for you, like, you are somebody that I feel like bought into the vision of Rescue a Generation, and have been able to carry that, and have been able to have multiple conversations with team members about buying into that vision as well. I think that's been, you've been an advocate for the vision. I think that's incredible.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that I've taken away, and I don't know if you remember this part, but they were talking about burnout. And I know for us, we had a few episodes back, we had a conversation about burnout. But then going into that weekend, when he said we we feel burnout or we receive burnout when we move away from our vision,
bro.
That was like,
bro.
And I literally analyzed every burnout I had, and I was like, man, like, you know what I mean? So I guess like the work part of it, the work part of the growth, right? The work part of not burning out and staying connected to the vision. What does that look like?
Oh man. Well, number one, I think it needs to be daily reminders, right? Like you got to, Scripture is very clear to write the vision, make it plain, so that the people can run with it, right? Yeah. Like that. Like there has to be a daily, like, hey, today, let's think of like we're rolling out a new thing here with like task list and like. And all the like, the stuff that like
I love it.
People don't like to do, right?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like, what we gotta understand is that too is allowing me to rescue a generation. Yeah. The vision is to rescue a generation that I'm not stopping from. It just means that I have to do task lists today so that I could do that effectively tomorrow, right? Like, and I think that's the thing. You got to have a constant reminder. And then I think you got to have people around you, bro, because everybody is at risk of getting off the vision. Right. There's not one, even here, even myself who started this thing, bro, I'm at risk of getting off the vision. And you got to have people that'll remind you to like, yo, make that left. Get back on track. Come on, you still got to fight for this. You still got to go. And so I think that you got to have like a squad around you that can literally redirect you when you start to veer a little bit.
It's good that you went there because my gloves are off.
Oh.
No, I don't know if you do this or not, but I've met a lot of leaders who have been given a vision and it's something that grows massively, like something like RAG, right? But then they also don't know how to let the vision of what they have kind of flourish because their internal or their personal feelings or vision kind of get mixed in with that. How do you avoid that?
Well, first of all, I am guilty of that.
Okay.
Right? So let me just be clear. I'm not exempt from that, and I'm not at a place where, I think I'm at a better place now, but I have been at a place, well, even prior to awakening, bro, like, I would say that I as you're describing that, I'm like, well, that's me, bro. Like, I was getting in the way of RAG's growth and development, and it was because of my own internal and my own ego and my own whatever. I'm gonna put myself out there. It's funny, like, as a leader, right, you start something like this and you start building a team and you're like, oh, bro, like, God's doing it. And like, man, I love the team we have. And literally I can honestly say I love every person on our team. Like that's not a lie. That's not a like, oh, he's just saying that. Like, I love every person on our team. Love that. At the same time, there are moments where a leader will experience rejection from a team member. Right. And again, I've also probably contributed to their rejection. So this is not a blame game or anything like that. Yeah. But here's what happens. If I don't process that rejection, what happens is I then get in the way of what real community could and should look like within our team. And what'll happen is I'll see, so a prime example, I'll see you and Leaky hanging out, right? And then I'll start feeling rejected because I'm like, well, what did I do? And why didn't I get invited? Yeah. Which in all reality, y'all are doing community together. Yeah. That's incredible. Why would I want to interrupt that, right? And it doesn't mean, but I think if I'm honest, I've seen a lot of leaders experience rejection at the hand of a team member, not handle it correctly, and then they'll be like, and so here's the dark side of leadership, the pride and the ego that comes in, right? Yeah. Then it's like, well, y'all are only friends because of me anyways.
Yeah.
But how egotistical and prideful is that, right? And it's dumb because thank God y'all are friends. Thank God y'all are doing life together. That's the goal in the kingdom of God. And again, going back to what you said is like, I am guilty of allowing my own self getting in the way of really what God wants to do. I'm gonna take it one step further. Internally, that's one way that plays out. Let's talk externally. There's a lot that we have to do to accomplish this vision that we have of rescuing a generation. That's not a small vision at all. I don't know if y'all knew that or not, but I mean, it's literally to rescue a generation. That's the vision. And that don't happen in a day, a month, like a year, right? Like you're talking about a generation. And with that being said, what I have found, even in the fundraising world, this is something that literally last week I had to process. We're at a place where we're getting ready to start going after some resources, and I'm super excited. However,
you can give that.
However, bro. I was like, we've been in the conversations where I'm like, yo, here's the number. We're about to go raise it. Say less. I'm ready. And then the day came that I was going to start reaching out to people, and I felt this start to like get weird.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is wrong with me? And here's what happened. I called a board member who helped me to process this. And what I didn't realize is that for the last 6 years, bro, fundraising for RAG has been about Jose and not RAG. And bro, I got gut punched.
Yeah.
I got punched, bro. And I was like, whoo, I have been in the way of the vision and what God wants to do here.
Yeah.
To me, that's all I needed for a little bit of unlocking to now go after the money and the resource, because I know it's available. I know it's out there. I know people are waiting on us to ask because they're gonna support the work we do. I'm convinced of that. But man, how often have I gotten in the way of not just internal growth, but external growth? And so, yeah, bro, I think I see leaders get in the way of the vision all the time, and I'm guilty of it like anybody else.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. That's good. There's so much I wanted to say there.
Oh, bro, I know.
There's so much I wanted to say there. Can't wait for that core TV. Let me stop. It's tough, man. I've always known for a long time, like, I am not that guy, right? I'm so good at being a role player. Call me Tony Parker, whatever, Mono Ginobili. I don't know.
Okay, Spurs. All right.
You know what I mean? Whatever, whoever that role player is, like, I know, like, I guess for me, coming from this perspective, right, and especially being in seasons, I think for myself, like, yeah, I ran an org, and then I helped run an org, and then now I'm in another org, but it's like understanding the season I'm in and where God has taken me is also understanding that I had to move back a bit and say, hey, bro, like, you're not that guy. You're not that guy, pal. You know what I mean? Like, you're not that guy, but it's okay. Where are you best useful at? You understand? And I think that's a hard thing for people in my shoes to understand, because I think everybody today wants to be that guy.
They want to be that guy.
Everybody wants to be that guy. And it's like even if I break it down a bit more, everybody wants to be a pastor, but no one wants to help the pastor. You know what I mean? And I think I've had to realize, like, man, I could have qualities of a pastor, but my goal, my vision, what God has set out for me is to help the pastor.
Come on, bro.
You know what I mean? And learning to walk in that. And that's literally like, hey, it wasn't always like, I wasn't always talking to you like, yeah, that's my goal. I'm that right-hand man guy.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I'm probably like fifth man right now. You know what I mean? But it's cool. It's like, one, when you're doing the Lord's work and you can remove yourself from whatever that is, you feel way more comfortable maneuvering in that fifth role than anything. Like, you not only does it work, not only does like what God does with you and from you and out of you, like A1, but you're happier. You're like, life is just better when you're walking in that will. So it's just, I would say that to anybody, like, realistically, like,
come on, bro,
knowing where you are in your season and understanding what the Lord is calling you to do. And if it's calling you to, like, hey, you know what, it's okay to kind of like serve under somebody for a season, or like, hey, you're just better at that. You know what I mean?
What shifted for you? Like, what was that made that clear? Because I have seen a lot of people that will opt out of that supporting role for the sake of what could appear. Let me just say it could appear the ego of wanting my own, and the I do this, right? When in all reality, there was so much safety, growth, health in the supporting role. Not always. Like sometimes you need to bounce, and some people need to leave, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to paint the other picture of that.
Sure.
But what was it that made it clear to you that like, yo, I think like this is my role, even if it's for a season, but like this is where I want to thrive at.
Yeah. You know, so for me, I think there's two sides of it, right? There's those people who are in that role, and then you can clearly see that they're like leaders. Like, hey, you're meant to get out of here and do your own thing. I think for me, like even I'll be it as transparent as possible. I was running an organization in 2010. Before I met my wife, she was working with me on it. And it blew up really, really fast. It blew up so fast that I didn't know how to handle it, and I shut it down, right? The reason why I shut it down after 5 years, right? And it took us 5 years, and we were doing so well, and we were like talking to mayors, and it got insane. Just a kid from Brooklyn, right? But the reality is, literally in the community over on the other side of Brooklyn, there was a man named Danny doing the exact same thing, right? The exact same thing. And here we are fighting for the same kids, right? And the reality is, he was doing it better. He was doing it better. So it's like either we're gonna keep fighting for these same kids, or I'm gonna digress, right? Fall under him and say, hey, can we do this together? Can I serve alongside you? And can we reach more kids? And I mean,
hold on. I gotta just stop there because that's what a hard decision to make.
Oh man.
What or how were you able to just give up? Because there's so much like pride and like, how were you able to lay that down? What was that? Because that what you're describing, I think, is a kingdom move. I think, man, people are better together. I think I agree with that, right?
Yeah.
But what did it take for you to still say, again, it's like you can't embrace the new until you divorce the old. You still had to lay that down.
Yeah.
Why did you lay that down? What did it take for you to actually let that go?
Yeah, I think I asked myself, am I doing it for myself or I'm doing it for the kids?
Dang.
You know, and don't get me wrong, there were some good people in my corner that said I was crazy.
Yep.
But just like how they said I was crazy for coming to California, it's these seasons. You know what I mean? Like, there were people who said, like, yo, like, wait, we could just do this and we could do that, but it's not the point. If the end goal are these kids, right? And that's the burden that God put in my heart, right? That broke it, right?
Yep.
If the end goal is them, I'm allowing myself to get in the way, right? And knowing that, you know, and not everybody has to be me, but even in portions, right? Even working with Danny, we ended up serving together, right? God belongs to my city, doing a bunch of stuff, working at the church. We ended up starting YFC, NYC, not a plug. We end up starting, and we go for almost 7 years. We go for, thank you, Eric. We go for almost 7 years. You know what I mean? And we're pushing it, we're going. And in those 7 years, you can see he digresses to what I may know more, or back and forth. And it becomes more of a partnership, right?
Yeah.
And it becomes more of this thing. But I think it does take someone to say, hey, man, how can I just serve alongside you? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, what was powerful, and bro, and I can go the same route, right? Me and Brandon here have had multiple conversations of that, because prior to Brandon coming on staff at RAC, and our played out different. Brandon didn't just have the idea to like let his go and come. I challenged him to do it. Which sounds so arrogant and so like,
hey man, leave that alone, brother. Come this way.
But in the conversation, and he'll say this. So we have this conversation publicly. It just sounds so arrogant right now. But like, there were things that I was really good at, and I was very committed to the vision, and I was going to run. There were other things that he was way better at than me, right? And I think I had the fortitude to like last, and to like, because I had a vision that like didn't stop. and he was more bouncing around to like a lot of different things. He had a thing, but it was like it entailed a lot of different things. And so a part of us coming together was he was incredible with students, and I was just like, yeah, you do that in a way that I can't, and I think I'm good with students, but I can't do that. And so a part of us coming together again, and shout out to him for not allowing himself to get in the way. Even bro, we're talking like a few years in. The agreement in the beginning was, hey, give me 2 years. Let's see what we do, and then maybe you launch out from there and all good, right? No worries. Because I know God works in seasons. Not everybody's going to be a life longer, and I'm with that, right? And 2 years in, I had this feeling that maybe this ain't 2 years. And he didn't have the feeling yet. So
He's like, hey, 2 years.
Exactly. No, so that was a conversation, and it literally took God having to get his attention in a way that he realized, man, that God was up to something in kingdom partnerships here and linking arms and coming together as opposed to doing it separately. And I just imagine how I could have gotten in the way of that and how he could have gotten in the way of that if we allowed ourselves to.
I think you said something, and I want to talk about this real quick. You said something really dope that I feel like maybe we should even talk about really quickly, because from your perspective, right? From my perspective, you're like the Danny, right? You said there was something that you lacked, and you realized that you had to let someone in whatever you were doing. You had to let someone in and be a piece of that. Not only be a piece of that, but literally grow that part. What does it take for a leader to realize that one, I don't know everything, and I have to give up in order for this to grow?
Well, the more it takes humility. But here's the funny part about that. I'm genuinely I'm genuinely good with students. It wasn't like I was so, and I think that's the down. I'm not administratively gifted, right? So it would be easy to say, okay, I'm not administrative. So if you're administrative, then you can do that, because then now that's a good balance. But what about if he's better at me than what I'm actually good at? And that takes humility. To be like, hey, bro, I'm seeing us on campuses. And don't get me wrong, there's a way that I was trained to have conversations with students that I challenged them in the beginning way, maybe a little bit more than he did, right? But to watch how students, man, rallied around him and loved him, and for me, if I didn't embrace that and celebrate that and honor that, man, we would have lost Brandon a long time ago. Because I would have kept him from being exactly who God was calling him to be. And then that's the last thing. A shout out to Tommy Nixon from UIWI. He's been on these leadership things, and the one thing that I could say is true about Brandon, and I pray it's true about every one of our team members, is I didn't try to make Brandon who Rag needs. I tried to make Brandon who God called Brandon to be. And then Rag benefited in the process, right? Good. And so, that's a part of that. It takes real humility, because so many times it's so tempting, bro, to give up the tasks that I don't want to do. What about the ones that I do like doing? You know what I mean? And give that up because somebody's going to be better at that. Brandon is a testament to that.
Would you say in order to continue to grow, you still have to give up?
Oh, easy, absolutely. And as the more Rag is growing, the more my role is shifting, and I'm evolving, and I hate every bit of that, right? I'm just Lord, I want to be on campuses, I want to be with students, I want to, and I can't, and so God has to literally kick me out sometimes of
well, you can.
I mean, but then it'll get in the way.
You would have to be okay with operating on this level.
Absolutely. So I'm definitely learning how to shift and evolve what my role looks like here for the betterment of Rescue a Generation, and so that we can rescue a generation. That's the vision.
That's good. Last question. Talking about new seasons, talking about growth. If I'm a leader, and I know I'm operating at 70, I'm operating at 80, how do I get to 100?
You have to confront what's keeping you from there in the beginning, because there's something there. For me, There was, and that's funny you mentioned that, because in that training, that was one of the things that came up for me, was that I was operating at about 80%, but my 80% looked like 100 to everybody else, so I was coasting. And here's what I had to address within me. I dropped the standard within my own self, and so I wasn't able to call it out on anybody else. And so me not holding myself to a standard allowed me to operate at 80%. So the thing that was keeping me from 100 was that I didn't hold the standard that I had once had. And I think you got to find what's keeping you from being, I hate to say it because it sounds so new age-ish, but being exactly who God called you to be, being the full version of who God created you to be, right?
Yeah.
What's keeping you from that? Yeah. And then what are you willing to do when you find that out? For me, I made a commitment that I'm going to raise the standard, and I'm going to keep that standard high. Everybody else around me is going to feel it, and it's going to be uncomfortable because now it does feel like I'm on a high horse now. No, I'm not on a high horse. The standard's raised, and I'm not going back from that at all. So I think that's our time. Just is
that our time? Is that our time?
No, but yeah. So raising the standard, I think you got to find what's in you that's keeping you from that, because there is something for sure.
Yeah. Man, well, that is our time. No, thank you for that, man. I would say, look, for anyone who's listening or watching, man, shoot us some DMs, talk to us. Let us know a time where you did feel done and you just don't know what it is to process that and walk through that. Man, we can walk through that together. Yeah. And if there's anything that stood out, have the conversation with us. We would love to have it with you. Thank you for tuning in. Peace.